Jack and the Princess. Chapter 1, Love at First Sight. Once upon a time, there lived a poor young man named Jack. He was a kind and gentle soul, who worked hard every day just to make ends meet. He lived in a small village at the outskirts of a kingdom ruled by a mighty king, where the people were poor and the opportunities scarce. Despite his hardships, Jack was a dreamer and a believer in true love. One day, while he was on his way to the market, he saw something that changed his life forever. He saw a beautiful princess, who was out for a walk in the village. Her golden hair shone in the sun, and her eyes sparkled like diamonds. Jack was mesmerized by her beauty, and he knew right then and there that he had fallen in love with her. From that day on, Jack started to visit the village more often, hoping to catch a glimpse of the princess again. He would watch her from afar, admiring her grace and poise. He would imagine what it would be like to talk to her, to hold her hand, and to spend the rest of his life with her. But Jack knew that the princess was out of his reach. She was a member of the royal family, and he was just a poor farmer. He had no wealth or status to offer her, and he knew that the king would never allow him to court her. Despite the odds, Jack couldn't help but daydream about the princess every chance he got. He would often think of ways to win her heart, even though he knew it was impossible. He wrote her letters that he never sent, and he would practice his speeches in front of the mirror, hoping that one day, he would have the courage to speak to her. Chapter 2, A Princess in Need. Months went by, and Jack's love for the princess never wavered. He would still watch her from a distance, but he had accepted that he could never be with her. However, fate had other plans for Jack. One day, news spread throughout the kingdom that the princess had fallen ill. She was bedridden, and no doctor or medicine could cure her. The king was desperate and announced that whoever could find the magical flower that grows on the top of the highest mountain in the kingdom would be rewarded with the princess's hand in marriage. Jack knew that this was his chance to prove his love for the princess. He knew that the journey to the top of the mountain was dangerous and treacherous, but he was willing to do anything to save the princess. With nothing but his determination and love, Jack set out on the journey to find the magical flower. He traveled through dense forests, crossed raging rivers, and climbed steep mountains. The journey was grueling, and Jack was exhausted and hungry, but he did not give up. After days of travel, Jack finally reached the top of the mountain. There, he found the magical flower, but he was not alone. A group of bandits had also come to the mountain, hoping to claim the flower for themselves. Jack knew that he could not let the bandits take the flower. He fought bravely and defeated the bandits, but not without sustaining injuries himself. He managed to pick the magical flower and started the long journey back to the kingdom, hoping that he would make it in time to save the princess. As Jack traveled back, his wounds began to take a toll on him. He was weak and exhausted, and he knew that he could die before reaching the kingdom. But he refused to give up. He held on to the hope that he would save the princess and win her heart. Chapter 3, A Treacherous Journey. The journey back to the kingdom was even more treacherous than the journey to the top of the mountain. Jack's wounds were getting worse, and he had very little energy left. But he knew that he had to keep going. The fate of the princess depended on him. As he made his way down the mountain, the weather turned for the worse. A snowstorm hit, and the winds were so strong that Jack could barely stand. He had to find shelter quickly, or he would freeze to death. He stumbled upon a cave and took refuge inside. The cave was cold and damp, but it was better than being out in the snowstorm. Jack made a fire using some dry branches he found, and he tried to warm himself up. As he was resting, he heard a loud growl coming from the back of the cave. He grabbed a stick and went to investigate. To his surprise, he found a wounded wolf. It had been attacked by a larger animal and was bleeding badly. Jack knew that the wolf needed help, just like he did. He used some of the herbs he had collected on his journey to tend to the wolf's wounds. He knew that helping the wolf might put his own life in danger, but he couldn't leave the animal to suffer. As the storm raged on outside, Jack and the wolf waited out the night in the cave. The wolf started to trust Jack and even licked his hand as a sign of gratitude. Jack realized that he had made a friend in the most unexpected of places. The next day, the storm had passed, and Jack set out again on his journey. The wolf followed him, and together they braved the dangers of the mountain. The wolf protected Jack from other wild animals, and Jack shared his food with the wolf. Finally, after days of travel, Jack and the wolf reached the kingdom. They were tired and hungry, but they had made it. The fate of the princess was in Jack's hands, and he was determined to save her. Chapter 4: A Happily Ever After. When Jack awoke, he was in a comfortable bed, surrounded by familiar faces. He recognized the palace guards and the king's advisors, but most importantly, he saw the princess sitting beside him, holding his hand. The magical flower had worked, and the princess had made a full recovery. She had heard of Jack's heroic journey and had begged her father to bring him back to the palace to rest and recover. As Jack regained his strength, he spent more and more time with the princess. They talked for hours, sharing stories and getting to know each other. Jack couldn't believe that the woman of his dreams was sitting right beside him, laughing and smiling at his jokes. As the days turned into weeks, Jack and the princess fell deeply in love. The king saw how happy they were together and, to everyone's surprise, gave his blessing for them to marry. And so, Jack, the poor man in love with the princess, finally got his happily ever after. He had risked his life to save the woman he loved, and in return, she had given him her heart. Together, they ruled the kingdom with compassion and kindness, and their love story became a legend that was told for generations to come. The end.